Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to 3D model your Dice Masters and prepare them for printing. So let's get started. For this, I'm going to be using this dice generator. To get access to this, you're going to need to be in the Dice Making Discoveries Facebook group, and it's going to be under their file section. I'm using the latest version. As you can see, it has the standard 7 dice and also a crystal D4. I'm not going to be using the crystal D4 today, so let's scroll down. We're going to go to the dice to draw section, and for the D4C, we're going to change it from true to false, and that's going to take away that D4. Whenever you make changes, you're going to want to click this preview button to see what you're doing. I like to do it after every change that I make so I can see if what I'm doing is working while I'm doing it. So for the D6, I don't want those edges to be rounded, so we're going to come down to line 83 and we're going to change the D6 corner rounding value from 29 to 0. But if you want those corners to be rounded, you can change this value to whatever you want. So we'll try 10. I guess that didn't really do anything. Let's try 20 then. And that's just gonna round the corners a little bit, so you can play with that and adjust it to whatever you like. But I'm gonna leave it at 0. So to change the font, we're gonna come up here to line 54, and we're going to delete the current font. We're gonna go up to Help and Font List, and then I'm gonna type in Copacetic because that's the font that I use. We're gonna click that, copy to clipboard, X that out, and then paste that here. And we're going to preview to make sure it switches over. As you can see, it switched over, and the font on that D% is way too big. So we are going to scroll all the way down. After you get past the dice size and the rounding, it's going to be separated by dice type. So we're going to scroll all the way down to the D%. It's going to be listed as D00. Let's see, if I scroll past it, number size. It's going to be line 173. We're going to change that to, let's try 40. And I don't mind if these numbers are touching just a little. I just don't want them to be overlapped. Let's try 38. Oh, not that. It's not really doing much. Okay, we're gonna go back up to 40. Well, what is vertical? I wonder if this is rotation. Nope. So it was at -5. Let's try -7. Okay, there we go. When I usually do this, I usually use the older version. I haven't really played around a ton with this version yet. I'm actually gonna make these a little bit bigger now. Okay, so that looks good. We're gonna go through the rest of the dice just to make sure none of the numbers are hanging off the faces. I already see the underscores. I'm going to adjust. They're a little closer than what I want them to be to the numbers. I'm used to working in Blender, so these controls are throwing me off a little. Okay, we're going to adjust the font size on that D20 just a little. It's a little closer to the edge that I want it to be. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at the underscores. see, find the 6 and the 9. Oh, I wish these were in a line instead of clumped together. Okay, so it's not quite touching, but I want it to be a little more below the number. So under push, we're going to change this to, let's see what 13 does. Alright, perfect. Okay. So let's check the 12. We're going to adjust that a little bit too. Let's go to 20. Alright. And these are going to be different for each dice, as you can see. Some of them aren't bad and might not need adjusting, but some of them will definitely need to be adjusted. Let's see, it's the D8. I skipped over the D10. We'll come back to it. Under push. $27. Let's see what 28 looks like. Okay, that's good. Alright, the D10. Where's the D10? And the last one is the D6. Alright. That looks fine to me. All the fonts look good. They're not too big, not too small. So now we're going to save this, and then we are going to click the render button. This usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes on my computer. Sometimes it's really fast, sometimes it's not so fast. So after it finishes rendering, you're going to go to File and Export, and you're going to export this as an STL. This is super important. Don't forget to do this, because if you don't export it as an STL, you won't be able to load it into Blender or your slicing software. Alright, so now that we have that file exported, we're going to open up Blender, and we're going to go to File, Import, STL, and you're going to select the file you just saved from the generator. And when that opens up, you're going to notice that it's all grouped together as one object. So if you try to move this, it's going to move as a whole unit. So to separate each individual dice, we're going to go into Modeling. We're going to switch to Top View, and we're going to select one individual dice. Well, before you do that, make sure your X-ray mode is turned on. Then you're going to select one individual dice, and you can either right-click and go to Separate and click Selection, or you can hit P on your keyboard and then click Selection. So you're going to do this for each individual dice. You want to separate them because you're going to rotate these on a point, and you can't do that if they're all grouped together as one thing. Alright, so now we're going to go back to layout mode, go back to top view, and I am going to go through and set the origin to center of mass by volume. And you don't have to do this, I just like to do it because when I go to move the dice around, it's easier to just have the cursor in the middle of the dice than in the middle of your screen. Alright, so now we're going to move these around. The little rectangle that I have underneath these is just the size. I have it set to the size of my printer's build plate, so I know how big to make things, where to position things, to where they fit on my printer correctly. Alright, so now we are going to rotate these all on a corner. I usually just eyeball these. They don't have to be exact, just pretty close. And the D6, I'm not going to put on a point, I'm just going to rotate it on an edge. That's what I found prints best for me. When I was printing them on a point, this point that's closest to the build plate always came out elongated, and I tried a lot of different resins, a lot of different exposure settings, and I just couldn't get that to print properly, so I started doing it on the edge, and that solved literally all of my issues. So I just print them like that now. Alright, so now that you have that done, you're going to want to move these up to where the point is flush with the top of this rectangle. And this just makes sure that they're all level. So when you open them in Chudobox, they're not sitting at different heights. Alright, I'm going to adjust this D10 a little more. Okay, let me double check that everything's good. Alright, so before you export this, if you have the little box on the bottom, you're going to want to delete that, because if you save your file with that box in, it's going to add in a solid rectangle underneath your dice, and you don't want that. So we're going to export. Before you do this, if you want to be able to open this file in Blender and edit it again, save it as a Blender file. I'm not going to do that with this set because I'm just making this for this video. So we're going to export as STL. I'm going to save that. Okay, so now we're going to open up our slicing software. I print with an Elegoo Mars, so the software I'm using is Chudobox. You can use this or use whatever software is relevant to your printer. So we're gonna open up the file we just saved from Blender. And as you can see, it's not rotated properly for the build plate, so you're gonna click on it, rotate, and I just click plus 90 on the Z-axis. And then that should, yep, everything's fit. So we're gonna go to supports, and these are all my support settings over here. I've tried a lot of different support settings, and these are the ones that I found work best. So we're going to use all heavies for this, except for in the number islands, I use light supports on those. And so to start with, we're going to put one heavy on the center, and then we're going to go down the edge, and we're only going to put a few. When I first started printing dice, I was following the only tutorial on supports I could find, and that was to make a wall of light supports along each edge, and that worked really well, but it's very time consuming, or it was for me anyways. I'm not very fast at placing supports. So I started playing around with them, and this was the easiest, most efficient way I found. I'm gonna mess up somewhere. And as you can see, as I'm placing these, they're not straight. I don't worry about it as I'm placing them, but after I have all of my supports placed, I go back through and edit them. So you're gonna click edit, and then that's not what I meant to do. Let's see. I hate that you can't move the screen when it's in edit mode. Okay, so back to edit. You're going to click on this part and not do that. It's only giving me issues because I'm trying to film this video. I don't make these perfectly straight, just kind of straight. It makes it easier to clip them off after. And I've tried supports without the sphere contact point, and I mean they work, but when you go to clip them off, I've found that they chip pieces out of the dice, and the spheres don't, because when you cut these off, you cut them right here above the sphere, and then you sand down the rest of it. So it was a little bit easier on cleanup and didn't cause damage to my masters. It took us a lot of playing around to figure out how to print these properly. It's actually part of the reason why I'm making this video, because when we were trying to learn how to place supports for these, we couldn't find any dice specific support videos. So we had to figure it out ourselves, and it was rough. We had a hard time. So I'm gonna speed up through the rest of these dice just so you don't have to watch me place all these supports. And then I'm gonna come back in and show you how I do the numbers. Alright, so now that I have all the supports placed, we're going to come back in. Let me go back, I don't know why. Alright, we're going to come back in and put supports on the numbers. So, let me start over here. What did I just do? Alright, we'll start over here. So you only want to place supports where there are islands, and as you can see, Chitubox recommends places to have supports, but those aren't always correct. So if you want to see if you have an island, this little drag bar over here, it shows you by layers. So let's look on the one. Right there on that point, you see how it's not connected to anything as it's building up. That's an island, and you need a support right there. So we're gonna put one on the corner. Probably stick one right here too, just to be safe. And then we'll stick one on top. And this is I'm using the updated version of Chitubox right now, and supposedly the auto supports are supposed to be better, but I haven't tested them yet. And I know that the way I'm doing them now works, so I'm just gonna stick with what I've been doing. And you're just gonna do the same thing with each dice. I'll speed through this part too, just so you don't have to watch me place all these supports. Alright, so now that you have all the supports placed, you're going to go back over to the Options tab, and I am printing with Soriatex Smoky Black resin. I think it's the fast kind. So we're going to slice that. You'll save it to your flash drive, and then you'll plug it into your printer and print it.